Thank you for joining us for the ABA's Civil Rights and Social Justice program called How Things Work, the Legal Edition. This rapid response series examines how current federal actions are affecting our civil rights in 2026. Um, I'm Gary Rhoades from the editorial board of the ABA publication Human Rights Magazine, and I am pleased to welcome you to this conversation. This short video and the others in our series are not only a chance to look at those changes that are happening in America, in American law, but they're also a chance to clarify any misinformation and especially the disinformation that's being spread. It's also a chance to look at concrete examples of how civil rights advocates can better protect the rights of others. Today's topic is the plight of immigrant tenants. Immigrants are facing an unprecedented barrage of unconstitutional actions and hostile and brutal tactics by the Trump administration in their attempt to deport and imprison millions of non-citizens with their freedom and their safety and their immigrant status in constant peril. What impact is this having on their homes and their housing and their housing rights? Well, on that topic, we are fortunate today to have with us Susana Sandoval Vargas. She is the Midwest Regional Counsel for MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund. MALDEF, as many of you know, is a renowned national legal organization that has been at the forefront of fighting for civil rights, especially for Latinos in just about everything, but including the courts, immigration, housing, and employment. Susie, thank you so much for being with us today to explain the legal landscape that immigrants face.
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation, Gary. There is a number of threats facing immigrant tenants today. And so, from what we've seen, it seems like the current political climate and anti-immigrant rhetoric has emboldened landlords to weaponize their tenants' perceived immigration status. Landlords are threatening to call ICE on their tenants over rent disputes or harassing their tenants to force them to move out. What we've heard is that some tenants have even preferred to sleep in their cars until they can find new housing because they're afraid that landlords might act on their threat or continue to harass them. Other individuals have had to move into places with much higher rent prices because they were forced to move out suddenly, but they would rather find a place where they feel safe and don't have to worry about being separated from their children and loved ones. Even United States citizens have fallen victim to some of these threats. And in mixed status families, we've seen the landlord threaten to call ICE on family members that are not even their tenants. And it looks like mixed status families may be faced with further challenges with recent proposed ruled by the Department of Housing and Urban Development that could potentially ban mixed status families from living in federally subsidized housing. Something else that we've seen is that immigration raids have led to some tenants having to abandon their housing and sometimes all of their personal belongings that they left behind in their home if they're detained or deported and they don't have a family member or a friend to help them gather some of those things.
Could you speak to the prevalence of these threats and these actions?
Yes, of course. So I am in our Midwest office, and here in the Midwest, what we've seen is a rise in landlords, condominium associations, and even neighbors making housing challenging for Latinos, particularly in the state of Illinois. I don't have a specific number, but we have learned of more and more landlords weaponizing their tenants' immigration status, or landlords and condo associations refusing to rent to certain individuals because of their national origin. And there have also been circumstances where neighbors are trying to force out certain individuals out of their neighborhoods. Another thing that we've noticed is that in Illinois, organizations and other partners have reached out to us to learn more about the available protections because of this rise, and some of them have filed lawsuits on behalf of tenants whose rights have been violated.
What legal protections do immigrants have when they face this kind of discrimination and harassment?
Yes, so there are protections at the federal, state, and local level. So under the federal, the Fair Housing Act, there are protections from discrimination based on national origin. There's protection against harassment, and then protection from retaliation for asserting their rights. And this is important because a lot of individuals are concerned about that retaliation for exercising their rights. At the state level, certain states like the state of Illinois and California have passed laws known as the Immigrant Tenant-Protection Act. And these laws protect against those exact scenarios I was just talking about, where the landlord is weaponizing an individual's actual or perceived immigration status to force higher rent prices, force them out of their home, or over disputes of conditions of living. And so it makes it unlawful to make those types of threatening to call enforcement on these individuals or their loved ones because of these disputes. There are also, state and local ordinances that protect against, the conditions of the apartments. So we've seen a lot of individuals where the dispute arises because the conditions of living are so bad. We have boarded windows, we don't have proper living conditions. And so they raise some of these issues to their landlords. And then sometimes this is how the threat arises. And so there are, laws that ensure that the living conditions have to meet certain requirements. There's also laws that protect against, evictions. There's certain procedures that have to happen. There's certain steps that landlords have to take in order to evict an individual. Unfortunately, we have seen, some of these landlords are trying to circumvent that eviction process.
So there are some legal tools and protections for them in both old and new, it sounds like, laws. What have you seen in your vantage point at MALDEF as some of the barriers for immigrant tenants to avail themselves of those protections?
Yeah, of course. So individuals are afraid that they or their loved ones are going to be faced with deportation, immigration enforcement. In mixed status families, there is the fear of family separation. Nobody wants to be separated from their loved ones, especially there's always a great concern when there's children involved, of course. There's always this fear of the landlord retaliating, right? So maybe even if they don't go through with their threat of ICE enforcement, what other possible retaliation the landlord might take against them. Um, and all of this, there's also this lack of legal knowledge. So a lot of individuals are not aware of their rights. And so they know something is wrong, but they don't necessarily understand what they can do, how they can do it, or how to go about doing that. And so there is this lack of education or on housing that, there needs to be more information out there. And I think there is now more information that there was before. That also is another reason why we are hearing more and more about these situations because people are understanding their rights. But there's also, the barrier of if they can afford an attorney, right? So some of these statutes, like the Illinois Tenant Protection Act, do award attorneys fees and costs. But if people are not aware of that, one of their barriers is, well, I don't know how to connect with the proper attorney, and I don't know if I can afford them. So they might, feel that they just don't have the means of exercising their rights.
Well, how do you and MALDEF work to address some of those concerns that your clients have?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the decision is theirs, and every individual needs to make a risk assessment and determine if it is right for them and their family to move forward if they have a claim. The best that we can do is explain the law to them, explain if there are any protections, right? Is there a way to file possibly under a pseudonym, or is there certain information that is not relevant? So under the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, for example, immigration status is not relevant because it protects both against actual immigration status and perceived immigration status. In fact, there's part of the statute that says that immigration status is not relevant. So explaining all of these things to the individual, and at the end of the day, they go back with their loved ones and make an informed decision as to whether they want to move forward or not. And we understand that it is a very difficult decision, and every individual is going to reach the decision that is best for them.
It's been exciting to watch you and MALDEF and your clients use some of these legal protections and win these battles. Could you please describe some of those cases for us and how they are how that precedent is helping you grow the protections?
Yeah, so in Illinois, an Illinois circuit judge awarded our clients over $80,000 in damages, where the landlord threatened to call immigration officials over a rent dispute. The court also awarded attorneys' fees and costs that we know of. This is the first judgment under the Illinois Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, and we hope that, this is informative to other tenants who might be going through similar circumstances so that they know that, there is a recourse if their rights are violated, that they can seek and find help. And so this judgment was a reminder that a violation of the law is going to have serious consequences. You can't just go around weaponizing an individual's immigration status when it's unlawful.
What can attorneys and advocates do to help you all and help immigrants on this at this intersection of housing and immigrant status?
Yeah, so I think after we received judgment under the Illinois Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, advocates and other attorneys reached out to learn more about, what are the protections under the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, what can be done, and to learn more about how to bring a lawsuit under the law. And so filing some of these complaints, right, because there is more need than, for example, our organization can take. I always like to say we're a small but mighty organization. So we can't, unfortunately, we can't take every case even if we wanted to. So the more, COEs and trainings that there are on these legal rights, and more attorneys and more organizations that can bring some of these lawsuits on behalf of individuals that are being impacted, that's one of the ways. The other way is in states where there aren't protections, like in California and Illinois, where we have the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, possibly, seeing if it's possible to draft tenant protection legislation similar to what has been passed in these states, and seeing if these protections can be in other states as well. There's also a, possibility of partnering with other organizations. So the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, so for example, an eviction process can sometimes be raised as a defense. So there's different things that have arisen from uh, more information on the Immigrant Tenant Protection Act here in Illinois is what I've seen, and I would be hopeful that similar things can happen in other states. But there are also federal protections and federal claims that could be brought under those.
Thank you so much, Susie, for that clear walkthrough of what's unfolding today. And I I want to extend my personal gratitude to you and MALDEF and your colleagues there for what you all are doing doing an amazing job of defending immigrants in these really challenging times. So thank you. Uh, to those of you who are watching, this critical work continues. It continues in our communities and in their courts, and then also here at the American Bar Association. I encourage you to stay engaged or get engaged with the ABA. You can go to our website and see what events are coming up, and you can even join a committee to help shape this work. So once again, thank you for watching. Keep fighting. Together we can, and we will make a difference.